Have you ever wondered if out there in the vast financial world there is a stock, the one stock, the perfect stock, a stock into which you could dump all your money, go all in and be guaranteed to make money? Well, I have, and that's why I spent the past 3 weeks on a quest to find flawlessness. I was thinking about how could I actually find the perfect stock, what would I have to look for, and about a year ago I even did something similar when I scanned through all these stocks and calculated their intrinsic values, but that didn't go that well. So I knew I had to do something different, but I just didn't know what. But then when I was looking at some random stocks on Yahoo Finance, I got an idea. What if I just use all the different metrics and calculate some kind of a score or ranking for each stock in every sector? So I started off by downloading the list of stocks for all sectors on the Nasdaq, NYSE and Amex exchanges. But that didn't really give me a lot of data to work with. Now luckily in the past I've already written some short Python programs that extract data from Yahoo Finance and store it in an Excel file. But before I did that I still had to decide which data I would actually need, and after looking through all the metrics and consulting with my financial advisor, I decided to use price to earnings, price to sales, price to book, debt to equity and PEG ratios, enterprise value to EBITDA, enterprise value to revenue, price to free cash flow, profit margin, market cap, and by how much did the free cash flow increase over the past years. Having that said, here is the short program that extracted these metrics and stored them in an Excel file. I won't go into detail, but I will say that I had to use some logic when calculating the increase in free cash flow to prevent a positive increase when free cash flow was actually decreasing. For example, if the earliest free cash flow is -10 and the latest is -15, you get a positive return when dividing one with the other. And I hope everyone knows that when you divide two negative numbers you get a positive number. Apart from that, I had to fix some other issues while calculating this metric, but I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. Anyway, here is a sneak peek of how the retrieved data looks like. Oh, and by the way, my Excel uses comma instead of a decimal point, so don't get thrown off by that. Now that I had the data, I still had to actually come up with a way of ranking, or I guess scoring stocks. And after some thought and discussion with my personal assistant, I decided to try two approaches. I came up with the first one while my financial advisor came up with the second one. So the first one is a bit, let's just say, special. Yeah, special is a nice word. Anyway, in the first approach I basically created a ranking system in which stocks are ranked from worst to best for each metric. For example, I want free cash flow to increase as much as possible, so the first place in this metric will go to the stock with the highest increase in free cash flow. Meanwhile, I want PE ratio to be as low as possible, so the first place in this metric will go to the stock with the lowest PE. Then I just simply added up all the ranks in different metrics for each stock and divided the sum by the number of metrics to get an average rank for each stock. And yeah, here are the top stocks for each sector, at least based on this special way of ranking stocks. Out of the total 11 stocks, 3 are large caps, 2 are mid caps, 3 are small caps, and 3 are micro caps. 10 of them are profitable, which is great, and honestly at first glance these stocks look awesome. But when I looked deeper, I found that 6 of them are stocks in emerging markets and are therefore not available for me to invest in. If I replace them with the next best stocks, I would be left with this: 1 large cap, 8 small caps, and 2 micro caps, with 9 of them being profitable, and that honestly still sounds great. Quite risky, but great. Based on the 5-year historical market performance, I would get an average annual return of -11%. But because I'm trying to find the best performing stocks for the future, I don't really know if I should take this fact into account. The second approach, which was initially suggested to me by Higher Conscience, creates an overall score for each stock, and then I just simply rank the stocks based on their final score. But before I've done any calculations, I had to normalize each metric, which means that I had to put all metrics on the same scale, because with raw data you can't make any meaningful comparisons between, let's say, a PE ratio and a profit margin, where the first is in the tens or hundreds and the second in percentages. There are different ways of doing that, but I use the one called Z-scores, in which you firstly calculate the average and the standard deviation of each metric, and then you use them in this equation to calculate the z-score for each metric of every stock. Then I just had to define and apply weights to each metric and sum up everything. And this is the most important part of this approach, because it completely changes what you get as the best stock. I have 11 metrics, so I need 11 weights, one for each metric. Weights range from 0 to 1, which translates to 0% and 100%, and they basically represent how important is a certain metric to you. All weights have to sum up to 1 or 100%. You can't have less or more than 100%. I should also point out that you can have negative weights, which comes useful when you want a certain metric to be as low as possible. For example, I want the PE ratio to be as low as possible, so I will use a negative weight for this metric. But at the same time, I want increase in free cash flow to be as high as possible, so I will use a positive weight for this metric. But whatever you do, the absolute values of weights always have to add up to 1 or 100%. Once you've decided on which metrics are the most important to you, you multiply the weights with normalized scores and voila, the end result. So you can really see how changing just 2 weights completely changes the score, which is why I've played around with different weights for quite some time, just looking at how changing the weights changes the number 1 stock for each sector. And even though to me increasing free cash flow, PE ratio and profit margin are the most important metrics, I also tried increasing the weights on other metrics. But I still mostly got the same stocks, and here are the best stocks for each sector based on how often they appeared at the number 1 spot. I know that if I change the weights more than just 15 times, I could get a different result, so that's something I could still improve upon. But let's just focus on the current most common ones. We have 4 large caps, 6 mid caps and 1 small cap. Out of them, only 1 isn't profitable, and based on the 5-year historical market performance, I would get an average annual return of 15.62%, which isn't even that bad. I think the second approach is definitely better and safer, which is why I might even buy these best stocks in each sector. But if I had to choose the best stock out of them, I would probably go with Shockwave Medical with a ticker symbol of SWAV, just because this stock has been falling in the past couple of months and has reached its recent lows. And oh boy, I just love to buy stocks when they're falling. Besides that, it has an amazing profit margin and its free cash flow has been steadily increasing over the past couple of years. If you want to know more, they came up with a new way of interventional therapy for calcified cardiovascular disease. And if I decide to invest in these stocks, I'll definitely do an update a year later, so make sure to subscribe. If you want to see how this 21-year-old turned $3,500 into $350,000 over the summer, click on the video that just popped up. And if you have any questions or recommendations, leave it in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.